Hey, welcome back to my channel. This is a little bit longer than the last one because it's more of a closer step-by-step. I sped this part up a little bit by maybe 2 times just to make the video shorter because it would have been longer if I didn't. But just giving you a clear view of how I start off when it comes to sketching out half of the body. I did that was it. I did morphs from the chest up, so kind of like a portrait, but not all the way. I don't like to use too many lines because using too many lines drives me insane. For this, I did some fan art of Kagome because I love Inuyasha, but also doing fan art of anime really helps. It helps with finding my style. It helps with getting better with experimenting on colors and rendering. And since it's an easy reference to use, it's not too complicated, I decided to pick it. I did start out with another sketch, but that sketch became too complicated and it would have been hard to have you follow while I did it. I feel like this is an easy enough pose if you're looking to learn how to draw. You could just watch and kind of just see what I do. And I just want to let you know that I always switch back and forth and I always start over. So what you'll see coming up is me ditching this original sketch and going to something different. I was drawing this and at the time it just wasn't clicking for me. And I think it's important that regardless of what you're doing, if you think that you're going to be creating one thing, try to just sketch a bunch and see what you like and what you don't like. And if you really do not like it, just scrap it. I'm always thinking, should I show like the full-blown process of what I started with, what I ditched? But honestly, I think you should see it because that's just how I am. I got rid of this, didn't like it, started again. And it's absolutely okay if you start again, if you ditch the whole thing. That's the beauty of it, of digital art. You could do that with traditional art too. You'd run out of paper or canvases. I probably can't do that with a canvas and painting. I mean, you can paint over it. That's a lie. You can definitely paint over it. But you can always start over. And there's nothing wrong with that. I know some artists are nervous about people seeing their process for whatever reason. That's valid. Me, I just don't care. You can see the do-overs, the starts, the finish, the taking something out, or just completely getting rid of it, which is what I do often. So because I cannot draw clothing from memory, I keep the references around. It is easier for me to find a reference of an outfit, and it doesn't have to be exactly, but just so I can see how things fold, I just use a reference. If you can make up outfits from your imagination, I envy you because I cannot. And I did originally want to draw her in a more casual outfit, not just her school uniform, but I also decided the school uniform would be better because she's more recognizable that way. But because it's also an easy outfit to draw, I said let's go with it. There aren't too many outfits with her in that are different from either this or maybe just her wearing a sweater. And since I wanted her to be recognizable to you, obviously I have the reference picture here, but at least have her look somewhat close to her original design and just be in my style or what I'm trying to get as my style. So what I started doing as far as, and if you hear that, that's my dog, when other animals are like running through, well, not running, but when people are taking their dogs out, he kind of gets upset. But when I'm preparing for something to draw something, an illustration, what I started doing was making a mood board. I've seen other artists doing it, suggest it, but I've never really... Sorry about that. My dog heard or sensed the other dogs in the hall and he just started going off. But I started making mood boards just to be better and more organized as an artist, and also to help with inspiration. So I had picked out a few photos of her and then some color palettes that I did not use, but I still picked them out just to get myself prepared of what I was going to do. And that's kind of with the other drawing that I made, it was working for that, but I felt it was just, as far as showing you how I sketch and then render, I just felt it was a bit too much and a bit too much to explain, because I'm still getting used to talking about how I draw things and how I color. And since I'm still figuring that out, it was too much. So I switched and just came for this simpler drawing. So let's talk about color. So as I got all my flat basic colors down, that's when I start to get into the details. So when you want to do shading, I personally suggest using purple and then just doing your multiply layer and then lowering that opacity. You can do from different skin tones, but I think this one works the best as far as doing like a shading effect, like from light, not so much doing it because the area is just darker, but doing it from a lighting standpoint. So sometimes I kind of just wing it because there's no real actual light source. There is, but not from like she's outside. Since this is just a portrait, I'm kind of just throwing it where I feel it should go. Shading clothing is probably one of the harder things because you want to get the folds right. I always kind of put certain effects to like the face to make it pop a little bit. I've started adding like rosy cheeks and then shading the nose slightly darker to kind of push it outward. I don't know how else to explain that. But when I want to draw different depths or paint different depths, that's when I will use a darker shading of the skin tone, and I kind of just go for it. I've studied a few artists and I kind of just took what they did for each, and I kind of just work with that. Like I said, I don't like to think too much about it, 'cause if I think about it, I overthink about it, and then I feel like it's wrong, and I psych myself out. When I kind of just do it and don't really think about it, since I'm trying to go for my own style, something that shows that this is me, and this is how I do it, and this is my work, and I kind of want it to be different, I really just don't think. I just literally tell myself, don't think about it, just do it. So because I like to use pinks and purples, I kind of just go with that. And it always looks off when you put your flat colors down. That's why I always put like a multiply layer on top and kind of just see with the different effects what that'll bring. And you know me, I love adding that line or lighting to add like a pop to it, just because I think it looks cool. I'm trying to figure out how to do it in smaller, like when it's like strands of hair. I haven't quite figured that out yet, so I guess I need some more art books to help me. I'm actually looking into a few, so I'm gonna run out of space soon because I don't have room on my bookshelf for art books. I barely have it for the manga that I've collected. This one, I think I messed with this a little bit just to see where it would take me. And I think I was a bit skeptical. Sometimes when I'm trying to do this way of lighting, I usually go for like the orange color, and then I see what happens when I just mess with the layers, the effect layer of it, and it wasn't quite what I wanted, so I ended up doing a few things. Sometimes the Gaussian blur with the extra lighting gives it the glow and it works, and other times it doesn't, and this was one of the cases that it didn't work for me. I struggled, and maybe it could have been the background lighting, maybe it could have not the background lighting, maybe it could have been just the background of the pink, but because I wanted to use the pink, I had to kind of adjust it to where it would work, so I ended up getting rid of it. Now, cutting to this, I had gotten rid of that whole lighting effect, and my camera also died on my phone because I use my phone to record. So instead, I went with I used the like soft brush to give like a lighting effect and glow, and then I kind of just went from there. So once I changed the lighting and how I was going to add the details, I went for the white. I just said, gonna use white because it worked best this way. So I used the round brush, the fine one, and that one I could get really good small details in it, so it's easier to do those thinner strands. Not as thin, but thin enough to where it looked neater. Not that it needed to be perfect. So I just went into all the places that I thought it would make the most sense to have it. Sometimes I have to think about, do I do a little bit? Do I do the whole profile of where it's supposed to be? Is where, if there was a light source, where would it go? I do really like this brush. I accidentally used it one time to do my line work, and I realized that this brush worked best. In the set that I have, they have an outline brush, and I was using that for a while, but it wasn't as smooth as I wanted it to be. And I was using this to do some like shading details, but then one day I still had it. I had it still accidentally like clicked, and I was using it to outline, and I felt that I got better lines with it. Even though doing strands is a little bit harder because it's pressurized, so you have to be very careful. Once I figure out how to do thinner lines with a technique, I can't wait. It's gonna be great, because this was getting a little rough as I was trying to do this one single strand. It was too thick, and I didn't want it to be that thick. I just wanted it to be very thin, like a literal strand of hair, as thin as you can make it, but I still not there yet. One day. As I was doing this one, I was starting to realize that less was more. And sometimes when I'm working on an illustration, I try to do so much detail because I was always studying artists and seeing what they're doing. It always felt like they were doing a lot. And I don't think I was really grasping their technique and their style because I was honestly studying from Instagram and Pinterest and doing my very best to gain as much as I could just off of that. But that's also why I decided it was probably time to start buying some art books. And the art books that I did get, there's not so much in the way of helpful tips of composition, but they do add some insight on how to prepare a piece before you start and what to study when you're studying an artist and what to look for. And the one thing that I picked up, which is what you probably started seeing me doing, and I did post a short of fan art of Power from Chainsaw Man, and I did it again with the lighting, but I used white, and I was able to make that one a little bit thinner, and that was something I really was able to pick from certain artists, and I couldn't see how they did it, but I figured out in that piece how to do it in a way that worked. In this piece, it was a little bit bulky, a little bit, maybe a lot of it, just chunky, and that's not really what I was going for. But I'm not mad at it. I think the illustration came out great. I personally enjoy it. It's actually one of the few fan arts that I've done that I've actually proud of. I don't really like my fan art. Sometimes I always feel like I failed in a way. I see fan art from other artists and their style, and it's really great. And then I see mine, and I'm just, my confidence with that is really low. When I do my own characters and when I can create illustrations from my own imagination, I guess because I don't want to say confident, but I guess because I'm not worried about people liking it. Because, it's an original character, so they don't know who this is, and they have nothing to compare it to. But when I do fan art, I'm like, I have to make sure that this is right. At the very least, somebody enjoys how it looks. So when I did Power, I kind of just wanted to focus on the hair and focus on that lighting aspect, the white lighting. And if I get that right, I would be happy. And I'm not saying at all that I'm not happy with Kagome. I am really happy. It's cute. I like it. But I was experimenting with her face. I wasn't too concerned about her hair. I wanted to try some things the way that I did the composition of her face. And once I did this overlay layer, I felt it pop. I'm still trying to figure out skin tones to where they don't look muted if I don't have a multiply layer on. I'm pretty sure you can do that without the multiply layer, but I'm also in the idea that everyone uses a multiply layer on top. I don't know how they get the tones that they do without it, but that's why I'm going to be spending so much money on some more art books so I can learn more, because I'm self-taught and I absolutely refuse to go to school for this, because I've been doing this for over 20 years. Not digital art. I've been an artist for over 20 years, but I've been doing digital art long enough where it's just like, me personally, I'm not going. So as I just added the extra details to her clothes, I was thinking of how I could add a little bit more to the piece itself. Since it's relatively plain, or I felt that it was relatively plain, I was thinking of a way to make it pop and to make it a little bit more captivating, because I don't do many expressions, and for the most part I do the nice dead look that a lot of illustrators do when they do portraits. So once I added the stripes of her uniform and kind of got to a place where I was happy with the overall look of her and her clothes and the shading and the hair. The hair was the big part for me. I was really hoping that the hair would look great. I wasn't going to add in too many strands because I do like to add some extra strands. And I wasn't going to add too much of a detail to her hair. I wanted it to be detailed enough, but not overbearing. Not yet, at least. So this is going to be this is actually my first Kagome fan art. I've never drawn Kagome before. I did Inuyasha years ago when I had a bamboo tablet. And I'm surprised I haven't drawn them at all since. So this is how it looks, my final rendering of Kagome herself. I think I was pretty happy with it. I know it doesn't sound like it, but I was very proud of myself because as I was figuring out the background colors and what I was going to do, I decided that I was going to add some flower petals, if you will, and then kind of mess with the line work just a little bit. I hope as I do more of these, I get better at explaining my process and how I go about setting up my workflow for my illustrations. I don't want to make them terribly long because I don't know if people are really going to sit there for an hour and watch exactly how to do it. But I want to. I want to show you how I draw a head and how I draw a face and how I draw a body and how I do environments and how I do different effects. I really want to show people how to do effects because I feel like the information out there, I don't want to say it's limited, but I can't follow along. It's hard to watch artists do step by step, and I don't feel like it's a step by step. I feel like it's just quick, and I personally can't catch it. And this is just my personal opinion. I've watched many artists on YouTube, and I think they're all great. But as far as learning wise, I personally didn't pick up anything. I didn't learn anything. I've only watched one. Well, actually, I lied. I've watched two who I've watched their process and have learned and gained something. I think I've gained more from the art books that I've bought. And I think that's helped me improve more than actually watching anyone on YouTube. And I kind of want to do something a little different. I want to do a step-by-step that can be followed and that you can draw along or you can pick something up. So hopefully this one did it. I was a little nervous. I'm always nervous. Feels like public speaking. But I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you were able to follow at least the structure, the sketch structure, how you do composition, how you color, how you render. That is totally up to you. What looks right to you is correct. I understand that there are certain ways to do things, but I feel like digital art gives you more freedom to experiment. I mean, you probably can experiment with traditional art. I see people paint in ways that I always felt that I didn't think people would paint that way. But it's really up to you. It's really what you're comfortable with and what your eye sees. And, you know, this might not be correct to a lot of people, the way that I draw and the way that I do composition, but honestly I don't care because art is subjective and it looks pleasing to my eyes. I should be pleasing to everyone else's eyes as well, but also when I create art, I do what works for me and I do what feels right for me. I do want to make sure that I have the correct proportions down and the angles are right and the lighting's right, But as far as color, me coloring in things, I know color theory is important, but if you have a style, that kind of does go out the window. If you want a specific style, if you want to create your own style, that kind of goes out the window of how things have to be colored. They don't have, the skin tone doesn't have to be natural skin tones. It can be whatever skin tone you like. Noses can be as long and as big and as wide as you want them. Eyes can be as big and small as you want them. The hair does have to flow in the correct direction, but then again, if you're doing a very windy scene, it can go anywhere. But I really did like the flowers that I added. I know they don't look like flowers, but that's what they're supposed to be if you were unsure. And I always do add my signature, which is past the donut, because that's too long to actually write and I don't feel like writing it. But I hope you like this. I tried to make this as relaxing and informative as I could. Sorry it was late. I do work a 9 to 5. So when I do draw, I draw at night. And when I do the recordings, they're at night. Because I do like to use the day for my naps. And when I'm off, I do only a couple hours of drawing. I don't want to do more than I need to, because then I'll just be burnt out at that point. But I hope you enjoyed this again, and till next time.